Alright, so we're in the key of E here. An example, dot note equals E. Dot scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B. If we do a pent scale on the second of that E, that's F sharp pent scale. So it would be F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, C sharp, D sharp. There's the 12 keys. Key of the lowest playable note goes around in perfect fifths. The key of the lowest playable note goes around in perfect fifths. The lowest playable note in the cages goes around in perfect fourths. So when you say a perfect fourth, you go root, key of C, let's say root to 4, and then we go to the key of the fourth, takes us to B flat. So the G string shape is 6, 7, root. Okay, so the G label in the G string shape, okay, is the 7 flat. It would be right in between here. We'd put a G there, but the G's understood that this is the G string shape. So we come over here, back up here now. So the keys go in fifths. So root goes to 5, perfect fifth goes to the second, 5 goes to 2, so G goes to D in the key of C, right? Then D goes to A, to the 6th, to the 3rd, okay, now to the 7th. But I'm doing these all in the modal keys, but it has to be a perfect fifth. So a perfect fifth from E to B is also, okay, we're going to have to do it in those keys. So now, where are we? The key of the 3, the key of the 7. Now in the key of the 7, to get to the 5 flat, see, we can no longer go just a 5 in the Locrian. We have to do it in the key of the 5th. It's a perfect 5th. Okay, it's not a diminished 5th. So it'd be like that. Takes us to 5 flat. 5th of the 5 flat scale is the 2 flat. 5th of the 2 flat scale is the 6 flat. 5th of the 6 flat scale is the 3 flat, that kind of thing. So those go in fifths. But I didn't finish them all the way around, but let's look at the lowest playable note. Now this is the lowest playable note in each cage, but as you know, if you move those cages to the open string zone, okay, depending on what that dot note is, what that lowest playable note is, could have the capo here and the lowest playable note would be this note. You move those cages down, then it becomes a cage that can play in this key, this mode. Okay? Now of course if you want to stay in Ionian, stay in the root key, then stay in the root key, okay, and then you would go up this as if it was a fretboard. So then you'd have to play this on the 4th of this one. So here's the root, and here's the 4th would be up here. That would be a Lydian scale. But if you move this 4 down to here, root becomes the 4 of the key of G. Now it's a Lydian scale of the key of G. So if this note is a C, key of 5 rather. If this note's a C, okay, it's going to be the key of G, Lydian scale of the key of G. Alright, so it's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7 root. There's the G. There's the G note. The red note is the G note. That's why I like the colors on the guitar, because I land on the right color. It's not like I start on the right color. I land on the right color, and that is a good reinforcement. Okay, so we started doing this other thing where the lowest playable note of each goes up in perfect fourths. So root goes to 4, 4. Now we got to go in the key of the 4, because it's a perfect 4. I know I'm harping on that. And then, all right there, 7 flat takes us to the 3 flat. 3 flat takes us to the 6 flat. 6 flat takes us to the 2 flat. 2 flat takes us to the 5 flat. So again, we go up in perfect fourths. So let's look at this. Sorry, itchy. So the the lowest playable note goes around in perfect fourths. The key of the lowest playable note, 5 fret cage, goes around in perfect fifths. I couldn't exactly find a relationship between this except for these guys, and that is they are related by fifths. Okay, so let's look at it here. G, D, A, E, and C. C is the exception because C goes to 5 flat, but it still goes to its fifth. Okay, the fifth of E is 7. The fifth of A is 3. The fifth of D is 6. And the fifth of G is 2. So C, once again, we have an anomaly where, like in the cage system, when we go around in fifths, the fifth of C is G. Okay, but the let's see, the fifth of the C shape is the G shape. Yes, of course. But the fourth of the C shape is the E shape, and the fifth of the E shape isn't the B shape, it's the C shape. So there's that anomaly. Here we have another anomaly, and we're using letters as shapes now. Here we go again. The fifth of the C note now as the lowest playable. Now we're not looking at them as shapes, but we're using those caged letters again, because it's those caged letters that are actually players in this situation here. C, E, D, G, A. Well, let's look at that on the pattern stack. Let's make it as easy as it can be. Here's our modals: root, 2, 3. Okay, then we have 4, we have 5, we have 6, and we have 7. That means you can start and make this C, or your E there, you can make that E anything. You can make it root, you can make it the second, you can make the third, you can make it the fourth, you can make it the fifth, you can make it the sixth, you can make it the seventh. Okay, so those are the numbers at the lowest playable. But now we have, believe it or not, C, A, G, E, and D. All right, what are these string shapes? They are the flats. The flats, baby. Right? still there? Okay. They are the flats. So the right here, what are these keys? Okay, the fifth of the G is the second in the key of C. Remember, the key is C. When you talk about the cage system, we're talking about using the key of C. C, D, E, G, A. Backwards is, and then back up to C. So C, G, D, C, D, E, G, A, C. Backwards is C, A, G, E, D, C. So here we're using those letters again. This is a separate object. Okay, so don't make more of it than it is. We're just using it as a tool. But it's not in the key of E. The pentatonic scale, let's say in the key of E, is E, F sharp, G sharp, B, and C. But it's not the E, F sharp, G sharp, B, C system. It's the cage system using the key of C. So that's understood now. We've got these letters as labels. So these are the big five here. When we get to these guys in the 12 cage system, what are the keys involved? So G, if we look at now we're going to treat it as just a note in a tool, a fifth. The fifth of G is the second. The fifth of D is the sixth. The fifth of A is the third. The fifth of E is the seventh. But the fifth of C is the 5 flat. So that's the anomaly. I mean, let's face it, 4 out of 5 ain't bad, and plus it's the fifth. So that's about the only correlation I could get between these. If you can figure out a better one, you're welcome, but you don't want to, derive it by going around. Okay, let's see.